Sigmund Corporation is a series of humble indie games by Canadian developer Freebird Games. It's among my favorite pieces of fiction. Recently, series creator Kan Gao has announced that the original game, To the Moon, will be getting an anime adaptation. As someone who's been following Freebird Games for years, I am super proud of them and to see how far they've come off of this passion project. This is also interesting as someone who's been following the anime industry. First of all, as far as I'm aware, there isn't an actual translation to Japanese for To the Moon, and I hope that this movie does well enough to where various other translators of many different languages are able to translate it, because it's such an amazing game that I feel everyone should have the chance to experience. Usually a lot of anime is very insular and takes from itself, and this is why anime has gotten pretty stale in recent years. And it's usually unless an anime creator such as Masaki Yuasa is able to pull influence from all sorts of places, and not just from other anime. And that's really what's been keeping anime afloat and keeping some anime recently being more interesting than a lot of what's been coming out. It also helps that To the Moon is just a great piece of source material, and it's going to be fairly hard to mess up, especially with Kan Gao claiming to be helping out the production, but it's unclear how much power he actually has, so that will definitely influence how good or bad it is. We don't actually know that much about the production. All we actually know is that Beijing's Ultron Event Horizon, who helped bring Your Name to China, will be helping out with this project, and that's the reason why this project is getting made in the first place. We also know that a Chinese company will be doing the main funding, while it will be a Japanese anime studio that will be the ones doing the actual production itself. With all the theorizing over anime studios and which one it may or may not be, I figured I'd throw my own 2 cents into the hat. The biggest studio I keep hearing people say is Studio Ghibli, which I highly doubt. Well, I don't doubt that Ghibli would make a fantastic To the Moon movie. Recently, they haven't actually been doing that great. A lot of their recent movies haven't done so well in theaters, and When Marnie Was There basically flopped, which is a real shame because it is a pretty good movie. I feel like them making a To the Moon movie would be too much of a risk for them at this moment, so I highly doubt it's them. The other studio being brought up the most is Comix Wave, which is probably because of all the Your Name comparisons here. First of all, the Chinese distribution company, which, by the way, a licensor does not make the anime, they just distribute it in other countries outside of Japan, in the same way Sentai Filmworks, Funimation, Madman, all of them don't actually make any of the shows, they just release it in other countries. That said, we also had Your Name as the comparison for the budget here, which gives it a little bit more ground, because plenty of people had tried to find how much the actual budget of Your Name is, and nobody seems to be able to really find it from what little I've seen. Of course, this means that there's a likelihood that will be a Makoto Shinkai film, which Makoto Shinkai, as just a director, seems to have a lot of talent, but it's squandered usually by not-so-good scripts. Usually his scripts are filled with plot holes that he obviously doesn't really care about, which annoys me to no end and leaves me not enjoying most of what he's made, and none of his characters really get that much depth of development. However, here we have the source material, To the Moon, which has one of the tightest narratives I've seen, with some of the most bestly written characters I've seen. And I feel like if he stayed true to the source material well enough, this could really be Makoto Shinkai becoming the great director where I can see him easily being if he had better source material. Sadly, there's also the possibility that this is going to be A1 Pictures, and they don't have a good track record with video game adaptations. Most of the Persona anime they have done are not really that good, and especially compared to the games are really not that good. And the Ace Attorney adaptation is really, really bad. Possibly the worst that actually sticks to the original source material decently, but aside from the script, which is taken from the game, everything else is, not very good. So I'm really hoping that it's not A1 Pictures because they just don't have a good track record with video game adaptations. Okay, so I'm gonna stop being negative for the rest of this video. Personally, the studio I think is heavily likely to be is Science Saru. For most of you who don't know and are questioning why I'm saying this semi-obscure studio, that's because they just started, and while their name isn't that well known, they just produced Devilman Crybaby, which is one of the most watched anime in 2018 early on, And they also just made Lu Over the Wall, which is also a really big film right now. So while their name isn't that big, their works they've made recently have been doing really well, so this could be the major anime studio they're talking about. It also seems to be a studio that would go completely out there and do something crazy like taking a random video game from Canada and then making an adaptation out of it. Another studio that I feel would be a good fit is White Fox. They're another studio where a lot of people don't know the name, but they do know the shows. Especially Steins Gate, which is a visual novel adaptation, and they've done quite a few of those, such as Chaos Head, Robotic Notes, and all of those. And of course, To the Moon isn't a visual novel per se, but it's pretty similar to a visual novel. Speaking of Steins Gate, Mamoru Miyano would make a great Neil Watts. There's also a lot of people saying Kyoto Animation, which I think would be a really good fit. They've done more emotional films such as A Silent Voice, and I also feel that they're generally more of a cozy aesthetic, which, while To the Moon does have some serious moments, most of it is really just sort of laid back until the bigger climax areas of the game. Madhouse would also be another interesting studio for this project. Sadly, he won't direct it because he died a couple of years ago, but it would be really interesting to see what Satoshi Kon would do with this because he made a lot of films with Madhouse, so I'm really visualizing his type of films done by Madhouse. I actually don't know that much about Madhouse more recently, so I can't really say how plausible it is, but that's another one that just sort of came to mind. But who knows, maybe it's some other big anime studio that is gonna completely come out of left field and no one's gonna expect. I'm calling it now. It's gonna be a Sanrio film. Probably not, but I'm gonna be a genius if it's true. As for the English distributor, I'm really hoping it's G-Kids. They've been doing a lot of more artsy and emotional films, while also they've been changing the script less than certain other distributing companies who also do dubbing. Speaking of dubs, I know it's heavily unlikely, but the perfect Neil and Rosaline, in my opinion, are the two actors from Tierney's Let's Dub project of To the Moon. I know because they're not professional voice actors, it's not that likely, but I can dream. Hopefully I didn't come across as too negative in this video. I'm really excited because even if the movie doesn't do that well, which I'm expecting it to do at least fairly well, I'm still proud of how far Freebird Games has come with this project, and I'm excited to see what they'll do in the future. Hopefully I didn't come across as too negative in this video. I'm really excited because even if the movie doesn't do that well, which I'm expecting it to do at least fairly well, I'm still proud of how far Freebird Games has come with this project, and I'm excited to see what they'll do in the future. These games are just one of my favorite things, and if you haven't played them yet, do yourself a favor, culture yourself, go out and play it. And also, if anyone at Freebird Games is watching, which I highly doubt, but it could be possible, thank you for your dedication and for helping craft such a fantastic franchise.